world of video game news never stops, and there are a couple stories floating around that I definitely want to talk about. First off, we're going to talk about Google. Google is entering the arcade market for your cell phone, and I think this has some very interesting implications. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is selling extremely well. Just how well? The answer might shock you. Batman looks like he could be returning to consoles with a brand new game. Sony State of Play is today, and finally, did Nintendo screw up the launch of the Nintendo Switch Lite and the manufacturing of the Nintendo Switch Lite? There's a whole bunch of stuff I want to cover with that, so sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So first off, let's talk about Google counteracting what Apple has just done. Now, a few days ago on the channel, we talked about Apple Arcade, which is a brand new arcade-like service for your Apple device. Basically, for $5 a month, you get access to a whole bunch of different games. And on paper, it sounds pretty interesting. They've actually gotten some exclusive games on there as well that look like they're going to be timed exclusives, but still, they're actually games I kind of want to play. Of course, the reason we talked about it a few days ago on the channel was because of Oceanhorn 2 looking like a timed exclusive for the Apple Arcade Store. There's also a Shantae game on there as well that's brand new that looks like it'll be a timed exclusive. So there's a lot of exclusives going to the Apple Arcade Store, which is making it a somewhat attractive place for people who want to play games. Well, Google is always known to sort of counteract things, and now Google has counteracted the Apple Arcade with Google Play Pass Arcade. Now, what the Play Pass Arcade is basically, it is a $5 a month subscription service, but you get access to about 350 different games and apps with zero ads. You don't actually own the games, you're actually just renting the games from this service. And of course, the fact that not only do you get games on here, but you also get apps on here as well. Now, considering there's a whole variety of games on the Google Play Store that you'll have access to, this may be an attractive feature for some people if you want to play some games on your mobile device. But what I'm seeing is sort of a trend in the video game industry that I don't really like, that's starting to creep into television as well, that I feel like is going to creep into the video game industry, and that is too many damn subscription services. Now, you might remember the whole cut the cord movement with your television things. People were like, oh, cable's too expensive. You need to get Netflix, you need to get Hulu, and then you don't have to worry about that. You're getting these things for cheaper. But now you're starting to see more and more companies come along with their own subscription services, and then taking the library of stuff that was available on Hulu, that was available on Netflix, and making it pigeonholed to their own subscription services. So now you have like 10 different subscription services, and it seems like every time you turn around, a new television subscription service is coming out. These subscription services will add up very, very quickly. And if that's the way the video game industry is moving, I think that's a very terrible thing, honestly. Sure, there are exceptions to the rule, like Game Pass absolutely kicks ass, but what if companies start pulling their games from Game Pass and making their own subscription service like you're starting to see with other things in the TV industry? Is there enough games in their subscription library to warrant a subscription service? I just think this is a very slippery slope for the video game industry. I'm not a huge fan of all these subscription services, and now considering that more and more companies are starting to get involved in subscription services, I think this could be a very tough time for the video game industry. Moving right along, we have an update on Google Stadia. Yes, Google Stadia is coming out very, very soon. And in a recent interview with Jack Busser, who is working on Google Stadia for the past 4 years, he actually had something very interesting to say about the online component of Google Stadia as far as online multiplayer is concerned. Is multiplayer going to be good on Stadia? Oh yeah, way better than you could get out of a console. Because of all these cloud instances are all talking to each other with these very, very robust high bandwidth pipes. You can imagine multiplayer worlds with, like, forget hundreds, thousands of people all running around a playfield together all at the same time, all being rendered up on the screen. Now, I guess in theory, this sort of does make sense. He's pretty much equating this to sort of like a LAN experience as opposed to an online experience. Of course, if you're playing a LAN game, you're not going to have any input lag. There's not going to be any input lag because you're all there, you're all playing on the same device. Whereas when you're playing online multiplayer, you know, who knows what could happen. There could be internet hiccups and things that come along that mess up your gameplay experience. But the problem with this statement is Google Stadia has already shown in previews that there is things like input lag, there is things like latency that goes into these single player games. We're not even talking about the online multiplayer stuff, we're just talking about single player stuff. So will the Google servers be able to handle all this online stuff? In theory, this statement should be true, but in practice, will it be true? That really remains to be seen. Next up, we have to talk about The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, which just of course came out for the Nintendo Switch. We got our first sales figures in for the game, and it's selling well. Very well. We got our first report out of the UK that The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening shot up to #1 on the charts and is the fastest selling Nintendo Switch game of 2019, actually outpacing Super Mario Maker 2, which obviously was a game that a lot of people were looking forward to. So Link's Awakening seems to be resonating with a lot of gamers. Of course, gamers seem to love the Legend of Zelda franchise, and I feel like a lot of players course, never played Link's Awakening since it was a Game Boy and Game Boy Color game. So it's great to see a lot of people enjoying this game. Of course, we talked about the game a few days ago on the channel. We reviewed it. I did have some minor gripes. I still think it's a fantastic game beyond those minor gripes, but it looks like Nintendo has really sort of hit their stride with this game. So it'll be interesting to see if we end up getting more Zelda games in this style. Could we see A Link to the Past finally get remade? I don't know, but I think if sales figures continue to be good for Link's Awakening, I think Nintendo would have a good reason to do that. While I may not be a big fan of superhero stuff, one superhero that I absolutely love is Batman. Batman, of course, has had so many fantastic games throughout the years, some stinkers as well, but for the most part, I've always enjoyed Batman video games. And the Batman games pretty much got put up on a pedestal with the Arkham series. The Arkham series was absolutely fantastic. Whether you're talking about Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, which is my personal favorite, Arkham Origins, which I think is a criminally underrated game, and of course, Arkham Knight. There were so many great Batman games, and it was such a great time for superhero games that so many people love these games, but it's been very quiet since the Arkham Knight and as far as new Batman games are concerned, and people have been wanting a new Batman game, myself included. Well, it looks like we might be getting a new Batman game because WB Montreal is tweeting out some very interesting stuff. Basically, they made sort of a cryptic tweet saying capture the Knight, and of course Knight was spelled K-N-I-G-H-T, and Batman is known as the Dark Knight. Now, WB Montreal actually worked on ports of Batman Arkham Origins, so it's not like they haven't worked on Batman games before. Now, it's very interesting about the timing of this tweet is, of course, the Sony State of Play event is today, happening at 4 p.m. Eastern time, depending on when you're watching this video. It basically happens on September 24th. So is there going to be a potential announcement for a new Batman game, potentially a tease at the Sony State of Play event? Supposedly, the new Batman game involves the Court of Owls, which is a secret society that's trying to take out Batman. Basically, a bunch of criminals doing what criminals do when it comes to Batman. And I really hope that we do see some information on a brand new Batman game, but I really hope it's not a VR game. Don't be putting this on PSVR like that whole Iron Man situation with PSVR during that one State of Play event. Let's just make it a console game. Now, speaking of State of Play, of course, a lot of people are anticipating that there's going to be information on The Last of Us 2. Naughty Dog has been very active on Twitter, basically making cryptic tweets about The Last of Us 2, so more than likely, The Last of Us 2 will be at this event, and you probably will get a release date for this game as well. But another PS4 game that I've been looking forward to, Medieval, looks like it'll be getting a stealth demo drop during the State of Play event. Basically, on the Japanese PlayStation Network store, a demo for Medieval just randomly popped up. Some people were able to download it, and then it was quickly yanked off of the PlayStation Network store once I guess they realized that they put it up too soon. So more than likely you'll be able to check out Medieval on your PS4 today after the State of Play event, and I think that's very cool because that's a game that's sort of flying under the radar, a underrated PS1 game that I'm definitely happy to see being brought back to the PS4. And finally, did Nintendo mess up the manufacturing of the Nintendo Switch Lite? Now, of course, a few days ago on the channel, we covered the Nintendo Switch Lite. I got my system in, we did an unboxing of it, we did some initial impressions of it, and everything I really loved about it. I thought it was great, the form factor was great, it's got a beautiful screen on it. My main problem with the system was, of course, the fact that save transfers were a bit cumbersome with this system. It seemed like cloud saves weren't working for whatever reason, so you had to manually transfer your save data from one console to another, which is a very long process, especially when you're someone like me who owns a lot of Nintendo Switch games. But it seems like there have been some issues since the Nintendo Switch Lite has come out. Some initial teardowns of the Nintendo Switch Lite have shown that basically the analog stick is pretty much the same as what was in the standard Nintendo Switch model, just with a different casing. Now, what does that mean? Well, of course, we had that huge problem with drifting JoyCons with the Nintendo Switch. It became such a big problem that a class action lawsuit was actually started, and then Nintendo sort of nipped that in the bud and said, hey, if you're having problems with your Joy-Cons, just send them in and we will fix them and send you back the Joy-Cons with them fixed. So a lot of people were happy with that. But there was the concern that with the Nintendo Switch Lite, if you get a Joy-Con drift issue, what are you going to do in that situation? Because you don't have detachable Joy-Cons on this system. Well, a few videos have been popping up online that showcase that some people are having some isolated incidences with Nintendo Switch Lite units having a drifting Joy-Con or a drifting analog stick that, of course, is causing the same problems that we saw initially with the Nintendo Switch. There's also been some things about the D-Pad as well. There's been some faulty D-Pads out there where basically the D-Pad is not responding in the way that it should. Now, is this a big to-do? Is this a big problem? I don't think so. I think these are honestly just very isolated incidences. If your Nintendo Switch analog sticks for your Switch Lite are working fine, are you gonna go on Twitter and be like, look, see how good my analog sticks are working? Look how good my D-Pad is working? No, you're only gonna speak up if there's a problem with it. Now, of course, with the launch of every system, whether it's a system revision revision or a brand new system, there are always isolated incidences that have hardware issues. No system that's coming out of the manufacturing process is going to be perfect. You of course saw this with the Xbox 360. Remember the red ring of death? Imagine if the internet was as big as it is today during the red ring of death era. Like, that would have been absolutely insane. But pretty much every system that comes out, even the initial Nintendo Switch, there are some defective units that come out there. Now, what's interesting about this drifting Joy-Con issue is nobody really knows what causes the drifting Joy-Con. Is it through prolonged use of the system? You know, what is actually causing this? But to have someone who's actually experiencing a drifting Joy-Con or a drifting analog stick issue within a few days of the system just honestly doesn't make sense. That really sounds more like a system defect more than a drifting analog stick issue, because of the fact that you haven't played this system for hundreds of hours or anything like that, which is what seems to sort of trigger the drifting analog stick. I believe that these are just isolated incidences, but if it ends up becoming something a bit more, it will be interesting to see how Nintendo responds to this situation, because obviously you can't just send in your Joy-Cons into Nintendo anymore with the Switch Lite. You would have to send in your whole unit. So let me know in the comments section down below if you've had any issues with your Nintendo Switch Lite, and if you think this is something that's just an isolated incident, or if you think it's something more. Alright, so that's all the news I got for you guys. I do want to give you guys a heads up. I will not be around for the Sony State of Play event. I'm actually going out of town for the evening tonight, so I won't be able to cover that, but I will be home tomorrow. So if anything really big happens or anything really cool, we will talk about it tomorrow on the channel. But be sure to let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.